want to begin today by playing a little game. Are you up for playing a little game today? I'm going to say the name of a company, and I want you to see if you can remember the slogan for that company, okay? Test your memory. Kentucky Fried Chicken. Finger looking good. Subway. Eat fresh. Allstate. You're in good hands with Allstate. McDonald's. I'm loving it. All right, I'm loving it. My 11-year-old is loving it, I will tell you that. State Farm, like a good neighbor. Oh, the choir, thank you. Oh, beautiful. In addition to the anthem, your slogan singing is excellent. M&M's, melt in your mouth? Not in your hands. Wheaties, the breakfast of champions. American Express, don't leave home without it. Maybelline, maybe she's born with it. Maybe it's Maybelline. And finally, Nike. Just do it. Nike, just do it. It was 1988, and Nike was in a fight for its life against Reebok. But Reebok was winning. Reebok had both the market share globally and was winning the revenue competition, earning in 1988 over $600 million more than Nike in that same year. Enter Dan Whedon, the gentleman, the marketer, who came up with the slogan, what? Just do it. He introduced this slogan, and Nike adopted it, and it was so successful, it became so much a part of sort of our conscious thinking that by 1989, in the United States, Nike had edged above Reebok in both market share and in revenue. I would say that was a pretty successful marketing campaign, wouldn't you? And in the first commercial that Nike aired with the Just Do It slogan, you would think they would have gotten some big athlete, some big star, maybe a Michael Jordan or a Magic Johnson or a Joe Montana or a Wayne Gretzky. If you're a millennial, I'm sorry, you don't know these names, do you? It wasn't a Wayne Gretzky, it wasn't a Jackie Joyner-Kersee, it wasn't a Flo Jo, remember her? It wasn't Mike Tyson, it wasn't Steffi Graf. Instead, Nike chose for their very first Just Do It commercial an obscure 80-year-old long-distance runner named Walt Stack. I'm going to play that commercial for you now.
I run 17 miles every morning. People ask me how I keep my teeth from chattering in the wintertime. I leave them in my locker.
People ask me how I keep my teeth from chattering in the winter. I leave them in the locker. Walt Stack became an unlikely hero and sort of the icon for this Nike campaign, Just Do It. It captured our imagination because it wasn't just selling a product. You barely noticed his tennis shoes, didn't you? Nike wasn't just selling a product, they were selling and putting before us the idea that anybody with enough determination and enough grit can do it. We learned from Nike and their Just Do It campaign that slogans stick because it kind of cuts through the chase. It tells us something about ourselves. It's this shared common humanity that Nike was able to capture so well. This 80-year-old runner that runs 17 miles every day, winter, summer, rain, shine, it didn't matter. Slogans stick because it cuts through the chase, and that's what our friend James does as he writes to first century Christians. He's cutting through the chase, and he's telling us, here's what the faith is about. Just do it. Just do it, he says. Now, he doesn't use the Nike slogan, but that's what he's telling us in this letter that he writes to remind us that faith is about showing up. Faith should be an active faith. In James 1:22, he says, "Be ye doers," apparently I learned the King James Version, "be ye doers of the word and not hearers only." You got to do it. You got to do the faith. Just do it, he tells us. And so in this short reading that I offered to you earlier, there are 3 characteristics of a faith that shows up, a faith that becomes kind of our MO, faith as a way of life. And the first thing he tells us is that words matter. Say that with me, words matter. Like Walt Stack, Walt developed this discipline. I've never run 17 miles at one time. I'm doubtful I've run 17 miles in my whole life. But Walt, 17 miles every single day. He showed us that it's about discipline, and that's what the life of faith is. And what we are to do with these words that come out of our mouths is we must learn to discipline them. A reminder, just reading again what he says about this, about the fact that our words matter. James writes, "Let everyone be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger. For your anger does not produce God's righteousness," he writes. Now, this is not only true for what we speak, but what we post on social media. If anybody had this experience that I've had where I'm on social media and I see this most ridiculous post, and I just get fired up, and so I'm typing my reply. You know, you type this way on a phone, right? You're typing my reply. Oh, I'm going to show him. I'm going to show him. I'm going to show him. I'm going to post it. It's going to just blow their minds. And then my better angel, "Really, Rhonda? Are you sure you should post that?" And the little devil, "Oh yeah, they need to hear that." Like the old-timey cartoons, a little angel and a little devil, right? "Rhonda, are you sure? Is that kind?" "Oh yeah, Rhonda, you need to post that. It'll show them." Right, anybody had that? Okay, I'm the only one. Okay, that's fine. It's fine. I'm unique. Here's the thing. Before we ever hit send, we need to ask ourselves, do these words heal or do these words hurt? And let that be our metric for whether we post or whether we speak. We are to be quick to listen and slow to speak, slow to post as well. Now, I want you to think about somebody in your life, maybe back in the past, who epitomizes these words that James offers to us. Surely in your lifetime, you've known someone who was quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to show anger. Can you think of somebody in your mind who epitomizes that? That person could be thought of as wise, or James used the word meek. This person displays a certain meekness, a certain discipline with how they use their language. Quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger. Now, I had a therapist once tell me that if you see a characteristic in somebody, that you can only see that characteristic if that same characteristic is in you. So guess what? If you notice somebody being wise enough to be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger, guess what? That same characteristic is in you. Now, is it possible that it has atrophied? Yes, that is possible. I probably couldn't go run 17 miles right now. Those muscles are not strong enough for that. But with discipline, just like Walt Stack running every single day, with discipline of our tongue, of what we speak and how we communicate, with discipline, it becomes second nature. We create those neural pathways, right? And they get stronger as we fire them up. This is so important, how we speak and how we communicate, that James actually returns to this idea in this small passage in verse 26. Listen again to what he says. If any think they are religious and do not bridle their tongues, but deceive their hearts, their religion is worthless, he says. Worthless. Now, did you catch the connection? How James connects what's from our tongue to what's in our hearts? The tongue always betrays what's in our heart. Now I'm going to ask you to think of somebody in your life that's kind of the opposite of the other person. Somebody who claims to be an extraordinary Christian, but you've heard the way they talk about other people. You see how quick they are to anger. You notice how negative their whole world view. Can you think of somebody like that as well? And remember what my therapist once said, that if you see it in somebody else, guess what? We can all be the people who are wise beyond our years. We can all be the people who are a little too quick to speak and slow to listen. So, with that, I'm going to give you your first of 3 internal audits today. On a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being completely terrible and 10 being perfection, this week, how have you been by way of being quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger? I want you to give yourself a score. When you have your score, everybody give me a nod. Give me a nod. All right, you've got your score. Remember that score. We're going to come back to it. Remember, it's your first of 3 internal audits. Here's the summary for this section. Your words are either weapons or medicine. So choose wisely. Words matter. Actions matter. The second thing that James tells us in this short little reading is that not only do our words matter when we're thinking about building a life of faith, our actions matter as well. James uses this illustration of looking in a mirror and immediately forgetting what you saw. Can you imagine being someone who's been looking in a mirror your whole life and then not being able to pick yourself out of a lineup? Just be like, I don't know. Who knows? Who knows what I look like? He's saying that is kind of us if we use our words to speak and yet deceive ourselves by how we act. He's talking about what I think was not only an epidemic then, but an epidemic now, a lack of self-knowledge in our culture. And when we don't know ourselves, the opposite of that is we deceive ourselves. We think we're something we're not. You can think about that person who says, yes, I'm an exemplary Christian, and then you're like, are you sure about that? One of my favorite quotes in thinking about how our actions need to line up with the words that we profess. It's from an unknown source, but it says this: preach the gospel at all times, and if necessary, use words. Friends, God isn't impressed with our theology if our neighbors aren't blessed by our love. If we are not acting our faith on a daily basis, then our faith is nothing more than religious cosplay. And we've probably known some people like that. So as we think about an active faith, here's your second internal audit. Are you ready? On a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being miserable and 10 being perfection, how have you done this week by way of being doers of the word and not hearers only? All right, scale from 1 to 10, give yourself a number. You got that number? Now, here's the hard part. Add that number to the first number. You're going to make me do math on a Sunday morning, preacher? You got that number? You've added them up, and now you have, all right, the combination number. The third thing James is telling us in this passage: words matter, actions matter, and integrity matters. Verse 27, the very last verse of this pericope, James writes this: Religion that is pure and undefiled before God the Father is this: to care for orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself unstained by the world. Now, whenever you hear about orphans and widows, and you hear this phrase a lot in the New Testament, you think about in the first century that widows and orphans were people who had zero power. They were not property owners, could not be property owners. They had zero ability to affect anything about their lives. They were powerless in that society. And so when you think about that, the translation in our culture today is the marginalized. So who in our culture today is marginalized? There are many, many groups of people that are marginalized. Here are the ones that come to mind for me off the top of my head: immigrants and refugees. That's a big one. Trans people and anybody in the LGBTQ community, that's another. I think about people who have mental illness and there's really no recourse for them, so they end up being the ones on our streets and homeless. I think about the children in Gaza, right? So many marginalized people. And James is saying, if you're not doing something to tend to the marginalized, then your religion, the word he uses is what? Worthless. If our faith doesn't make us uncomfortable with injustice, then we need to check our faith. James is saying, if you want to have an integrated life, if you want to live a life of integrity, then you must tend to the marginalized if you say you're a person of faith. So with that, here's your third of 3 internal audits. Yes, you're going to have to do more math. All right, on a scale from 1 being miserable to 10 perfection, how are you doing by way of tending to the marginalized this past week? Give yourself a score. You got that score? Now, add it to the previous score of the other 2. All right, you got that number? You're looking at me like, huh? Have you got that number? Yes, preacher, I have that. All right, you've got that score. Your scale is now from 3 to 30. 30 is the top score. 30 would be perfection. Anybody perfect here? Okay, good. That's the answer I would hope. We all have room for growth in this life of faith, and that's what's exciting. We never arrive. I'm certainly not at 30. I have a lot of room for growth, but maybe you can join me as we grow together in this faith that shows up. Now, remember back to Nike's Just Do It campaign. Nike's Just Do It campaign, I think, sparked our imagination because it was like, friends, just cut the excuses. Be consistent, show up. And that's the same challenge that James offers to us as we read his letter today. Our faith should be so loud in action that we barely need to speak it. Walt Stack did not become famous for talking about running. He wasn't famous because he went to running conventions. Why did Walt Stack become a little bit famous? He ran. He just did it. So the invitation today is not just to listen to this message, but to be this message. Words matter, so heal with your speech. Actions matter, so love with your life. Integrity matters, so serve the forgotten. Nike made millions with their Just Do It campaign. But our faith offers something far greater. Our faith offers eternal purpose. So what are we waiting for? Just do it.